Welcome back to another episode of Easier Said podcast. We are back in full steam from the break over the summer, and I thought what a good idea it would be to get all the cylinders firing, to have an intellectual / philosophical debate / discussion, mostly focusing around faith and politics. So I guess the heart of this for me has been coming with the landscape that has been pretty much since 2015 in politics and the divisive nature of that and how that's actually seeped into the church and relationships in the church too. So I guess focusing on most of this discussion will be centered on what it looks like to communicate properly, what it looks like to be salt and life in the world. Salt and light, same thing. Salt and life, why not? Salt and light. But I have two amazing guests here. I have Evan Jennings on my right, and be the camera's left, I guess. Stage left. Welcome, man.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And on my left, Ezra Siegrist. Again. Ezra, this is a three-time, you're a three-peater.
I feel a little special about that.
You should.
Three-peater.
Very elite company.
Sort of a record, I think.
It's up there. And second time. So welcome back, guys. Really excited for this. First and foremost, I thought we would just jump out because there's so many things that we could get to and ways we could go with this. Yep. So I kind of wanted to get it specifically, Ezra, your kind of reaction to the current administration as far as like a scorecard or like a school grading card.
School grading card.
and I talked to you too, Evan, and you were kind of like, well, I'm not like into the day-to-day local politics, which is probably a good thing.
It's funny. I would say, I don't know how long it's been since our last conversation on here, maybe a year.
Yeah, it's been a bit.
And I think that was right about at the time where I just fully burnt out on all of it. So I've pretty much had my head in the sand for the last year.
Yeah.
So I want to hear Ezra's perspective on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I find I have stepped back myself to a fair degree. Just asking myself what conversations are worth having. The other thing is Trump thrives in an atmosphere of noise, and
yep.
And the responding to everything that he says or does is probably a loser of a way to go. It is, in fact, kind of their game plan or ploy, whatever you want to say. Yeah, it's what do you want to cover? There's a whole litany of bad ideas.
Well, actually, that's an interesting point because the last time that you were on, your sentiment was more of how do I find ways to actively push against this?
Yeah. And I am no less committed to standing against bad ideas, or this marrying of the church to MAGA Trump. Like I still think that marriage is really, really bad for the church. That it is not. It's not bringing about godliness. It's not bringing about good. But it's a question of what you can, what are you called to? What are you called to? What do you, a little bit of look at what your sphere is. I found that the people that responded to me were the lowest hanging fruit to some degree or another. I know I'm probably not changing their mind, so like what does a conversation in the public sphere, like what are your goals for it? Or like, how are you going to, like the rationale behind having the conversation, I guess. So I was even kind of hesitant, like I mulled it over to say like, what the truth is, Evan and I aren't really on opposite sides
Right.
of this at all.
No.
Now, we probably have some differing perspectives
On application or
on
Yeah,
some
sure.
things. And I guess, so there's this iron sharpens iron thing, and that's worth still doing. I personally, I don't know that I would extend this to everyone, but in my conversation with Evan, I would extend that I am affirming that Evan and I are both believers in Jesus Christ as Lord. And we both actually want good for the people around us and want the Lord's name to be glorified here on earth. Doing that in a political sphere becomes problematic at best. And some of my, do you just draw back? Do you say that there's no holiness in politics at all and it's no place for a Christian? I am personally where I personally am at. I am not claiming the other side of the MAGA equation, whatever the other side is. I do have a place to say I feel like in any normal election, I'm half-heartedly excited at best. With Trump, I feel like, again, what I am speaking directly to is that marriage of Christianity and MAGA. The marriage of those two ideas, I guess, is what I would articulate as not good. I think Trump is functioning toward, as I see him, the only commonalities I can really say are like he's functioning like a cult leader. Like it's more than just politics. His ability to say things that just are crackerjack, and people like, as soon as you press him on what he said, on what he says, and not what everybody else says, what he says, they start telling you their interpretations, or like we get real squirrely. Anyway, I guess that's why I'm having the conversation in a nutshell.
Yeah. I think I want to make this point before I come to you kind of for some reaction there. I wanted to make that a point at the very beginning that the heart of both or all perspectives, especially in the church, should be exactly how you said it, affecting souls, glorifying God, what that looks like in tough, dicey, sharp conversations sometimes that are not easy, and they have to be had out. Otherwise, then you don't come to any solution. There's no practical end point. And for both of you, especially very intelligent men, what I know about you guys, and needs to be said for the audience, is that it's not a you versus him thing, because you're actually on the same side with maybe different applications of what would look right going forward, or how you'd even look at the same thing. Like MAGA would be a good example, or President Trump and stuff like that. So that just does need to be said, and I'm going to put that in the intro too, so that we know that we're all friends and brothers, actually. So go ahead. What do you got? Any reaction to that?
I think Ezra said it super well. And I'd be hard pressed to find much substantive that I don't pretty much agree with what he just said. But the things that struck me the most would probably be, absolutely, yes, it's a mistake for the church to get in bed with any particular political party. I would extend that beyond kind of the current situation with MAGA and just say blanket statement, we're not of this world. We're in the world, but we're not of the world. And ultimately our king and our leader is you think of that picture. I think it was in Nebuchadnezzar's dream where it was like the image with the 4 parts, and then the stone that was not cut by human hands comes and just crushes the image. And that's the kingdom that we're a part of. So, ultimately it's as soon as something bad happens on your side that you've claimed, hey, if you're a Christian, you have to be X, Y, and Z, that puts Christians in a pretty awkward spot all of a sudden. So definitely agree with that. Now, what I personally wrestle with and what I'd love to talk about too is I attend a church that is a Mennonite church, and within Anabaptism, there's varying degrees of strength in the sentiment that you should not be active politically at all as a Christian. And I want to figure out how that plays out in real life, because ultimately I think it's a mistake for Christians to keep quiet on things that matter. To your point, sometimes it's futile, right? Yeah. Sometimes you're not going to change anybody's mind. So pick your battles wisely. But ultimately, Christians are the only group of people that are equipped, I think, to speak truth in situations where it's really, really, really not beneficial and where it actually puts you in a lot of danger. Somebody has to be able to speak truth in those situations, and I think Christians are the best positioned to do that. So to me, it's a mistake to just stay quiet. But where do you draw the line?
Yeah, and kind of what's the ultimate authority? Back to what you were saying, Ezra, was as believers, we need to be focused on the Scripture as authority, not a party platform, and not some kind of ideology that captures you. And you can, back to what you said, Evan, too, is that Evan and Ezra. Why did I think of that was a good idea? Yep. Back to what you said, Evan, was you can kind of see the fruit pretty quick on what battles people are choosing to have those hard conversations and where their heart is. And so what would it look like? I'll direct this to you. What would it look like to have a loving conversation in such a hostile, emotionally charged atmosphere?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I wish I knew the answer. No, I think probably social media is the wrong platform for that almost always. And if you're having the conversation with somebody that you don't have a bedrock level of commonality and trust with, it might not really be very productive. And that's, that's one of the reasons that I said yes to being with the two of you, this evening, is because we do have that bedrock in our relationship of Jesus, where what we have in common is so much more important than any differences we may have. But when you're trying to have, a beneficial and productive dialogue with somebody who just comes at it from a totally different worldview, that's going to be difficult.
Mm. Yeah, especially with no basis for relationship, definitely.
Yeah.
If you're trying to affect something, though, there's this other, what I go back and forth with in my own life. And if you're not going to say it on Facebook, it's not in the public square or whatever platform you want to talk about. So there's also this thing where you're choosing not to magnify your voice.
If you have that outlet, but you're choosing not to put your voice there.
And is that a little bit of a cowardly lion thing to do sometimes? I've made both of those choices both ways, and I'm just saying, I wrestle with it. There are some times, like the man during Vietnam who sat in front of the White House with his candle every night and let it burn down. And they asked him, are you here because you think this makes a difference? He says, no, I'm here for me because it makes a difference to me. Just that it kept him sane in a world that wasn't sane. Because yeah. So I don't know. It was just I
think with social media in particular, there's something about the medium being used where communication properly and effectively is almost lost completely. Tone, the heart behind a message. You could read one message that says the same line 3-4 different ways, like in texting.
Yeah.
Have you ever gotten a text from your spouse or significant other and you read it completely wrong?
Yep.
Because it's not, there's too much in communication translation that gets completely lost.
Yeah.
I was just having this conversation the other night with somebody where there's different generations of texting. And I'm of the generation where if you don't have either an exclamation point or a smile emoji, I'm pretty sure you're mad at me. Whereas I think Gen Z just, period at the end of the sentence and that's it. They don't read into it. But a lot can get lost in the translation that way.
So is that something to navigate too? Because I understand what you're saying too. If you have a platform and it's actually something that's a conviction for you or it's tugging on your heart, then to say no to that, I would argue the same as you were saying, is that it's kind of, you're losing that for you.
Yeah. The other thing that I see in my own speaking on public platforms is that there are a lot of people in this world that don't know how to articulate things. And articulating a stance or a thought process in and of itself does have some ability for people to read it and be like, oh yes, they did say that well. And that's also like the auditory learner, it's a form of learning to read something or to hear somebody talk something through and be able to say, I didn't put all of that together myself, but that is actually where I come out at. So that's my sticking up for it a little bit. I'm actually, like I said, I'm actually on the other side of it. I've backed away from it to some degree or another. Mostly it's that if again, like Evan said, that bedrock, if we don't have enough personal relationship, I would still make the statement sometimes, but I'm probably not going to engage. So I guess I would just float it as an idea, and that idea has its own power or its own trajectory, kind of almost like, saying I'm responsible for my work, but God's responsible for the increase or decrease. That's kind of how I would view it a little bit. I put this out there and I don't need to defend it, or that idea should be looked at by other people and they can judge it. It's kind of like prophecy in that way. We can prophesy, and the other truth of prophecy is, from the other side of it, everybody gets to judge it. I think ideas are like that. Everybody gets to judge the idea.
Right.
And bad ideas have bad consequences.
And the only way to combat bad ideas is with good ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think when it comes to putting together some sort of a defense for something that's pretty hard to defend, you did a good job. I got off of Facebook in maybe 2019 or 2020 for a variety of reasons, but I probably got my first Facebook account when I was 13 or 15. I mean, I spent a lot of my growing up years with that as a part of my life and as a platform. And I was, as a young man and as a teenager, really into, apologetics and defending the faith and debate and all this stuff. So I had a really good run of Facebook arguments back in my day, and I just never saw any fruit from it at all. Yeah. And what I found further than that is that I was preoccupied by it. And it drew a lot of my attention, and that was attention that could have gone toward actually investing in real relationships with those same people, because some of those people were people who lived, a couple miles down, right?
Yeah,
so, well, there was no down the street on East Road up there, but
Right, that's true.
back in the sticks. So I just, I have
as
not
you
seen a lot of
articulate
fruit from
the
that.
return, I actually would. I'll switch sides and go with your return on ROI on real life
I think
versus
that
imaginary.
I like your point about the ability to express your ideas and write them down, and I think all of us should be doing that somewhere. And if it's not anywhere except Facebook, then maybe better that we're writing somewhere, because it is, the ability to really get crystal clear on what we think and why we think it is something that a lot of people just don't take the time to do, and that's important. So you do need a venue for that.
Yeah, honing in your intellectual arguments and actually doing the research. The problem with, again, the medium of social media is everything's so clickbaity. Nobody's actually informed, and then it pretty quickly becomes emotional, and then it just becomes
And it kind of turns
completely
into
destructive.
point scoring too, a little bit. I find.
Yeah, and well, if you're in the public square and you're walking up to somebody you don't really know in front of other people, which is what Facebook is, more people will see that, then it's kind of just like you said before. Is it really a battle worth picking there? Probably not, unless it's something that. And there's scaling for different topics.
Yeah.
Somebody would feel very differently about abortion than they do about tariffs.
Yeah.
Right. And so maybe there's a scale there too. Yeah. Anyways, so back to, you guys totally just dodged my Trump report card there, but
Dodged it.
no, I guess a better angle, a more philosophical angle would be, can Christians separate character from policy? Man, I'll let.
Do you want to
whoever
go
wants-
first,
yeah, whoever
Evan?
wants to
I don't even know if I buy the premise, because and this is something that I said a year ago and I'll say again today. I don't believe that you can really get a great assessment of somebody's character through CNN headlines. I just don't. So much of what comes out of somebody's mouth and what they do and whatever is filtered through the worldview and the paradigm of the person who's doing the reporting. So I kind of don't really like the question, to be honest with you, because that takes as given the fact that you really know somebody's character.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't buy that.
Quick question. Is Trump running his own Twitter or not?
I don't know how much he does on Twitter, but he's running his own Truth Social anyway.
Yeah,
That seems pretty clear to me.
Okay.
There's a lot of all caps and stuff that no intern would ever be doing.
Yeah.
It's interesting though, because there's plenty of clip surface out there where he's telling the person who's running it exactly what to say in all caps.
Yo.
Like, have you seen those videos where he's on like Air Force One and he's
He's like dictating it.
Yeah, to her in real time.
No, it's a good point. I definitely think he's authoring a lot of his own posts.
I am not saying that the news media doesn't manipulate things. I am saying the body of work of Donald Trump is pretty clear, and the reaching for as much as he can always take all the time is pretty central to his character. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess the question would be then, a little bit to Evan's point, is you're kind of alluding to the fact that we do kind of know his character, right? By what he says and by what he does, and stacked on experience of seeing his actions play out in the public square.
He's been a very public figure for a very long time, as public as possible. And to say that he is like the other politicians is a gross disservice to the other politicians. He is very unique and fills and takes up a whole lot of space. And Now, deciphering, the rub really right there is deciphering what you think he means by what he says.
Right.
And if you believe what he says is what he means, it's pretty indefensible. I mean, we could start on the list of quotes and it would be, yeah. So some of that is negated when I talk to people, that they would very quickly say he has had a conversion experience and that he is different and that you can't judge old Trump by new Trump. I have never seen anything articulated by him to make me think that he has claimed somebody else as his savior and not him.
Response?
I feel like there's a lot of like illusions and implications here, and I'd love to take like one single example to talk about, because I can't do a whole lot with a bunch of implications. To whether he's a Christian or not, I have no idea. I don't, like you said, I don't know if I've ever seen compelling evidence that there was this light bulb moment for him where he came to the Lord and now he's a different man. I don't see that. I can't judge his heart, but I'm not in that camp necessarily. You're right, Ezra. He is a lot. He's not a mainstream politician. He never has been. I think that's kind of part of the secret sauce a little bit. That's what people liked back in 2016. And for me, that's a good thing. In a world of slippery people who flip-flop on everything and kind of speak out of both sides of their mouth, I see somebody who doesn't quite operate that way. And even on a character level, even if we say, hey, we agree that he doesn't have the character that you should have as a president or something like that. I just don't. I put a lot more stock into actions than I do into words that have been filtered through the news media machine.
And that's the hard part about a guy like President Trump is he'll very much say things to distract. He'll very much say things to affect markets. He'll very much say things to make the other side jump on that on purpose. Like you can see, he's not a guy who I have ever felt like I can just take exactly what he says at face value. That's what he means. He's a strategist, in my opinion. So when he's saying things like, we're going to tariff everybody, forever or whatever he was saying, drawing a bunch of crazy, then brings people to the table. You can kind of start seeing the method to some of the madness. And I mean, there's lots of examples. I could try to find some, but he doesn't seem like, he seems very cunning. Would that be a good word? He's very intentional about some of the stuff that he says, even if he knows it's going to be controversial.
Probably even so much the better if it's controversial as far as he's concerned.
Yeah. No such thing as bad publicity, right? And I mean, it's not a pass. It's not a pass to say crazy things, and I think to your original point of he feels a little bit like a cult leader. There's definitely a lot of his following. I don't know what, I wouldn't even say a lot. There's definitely a part of his following that it doesn't matter what he does, what he says, and what he projects he's going to say, they'll defend him no matter what. And that, I think, is a problem too.
Yeah, agreed.
But what do you think about that? Do you think that sometimes he'll say things to, you just see that all the time. Like he'll say something and then the left will like way overreact on purpose or not, that was his whole intention.
Yeah, bait and switch, or
as bait and switch.
Muhammad Ali did rope-a-dope, or it's rope-a-dope with words.
And then you have to kind of follow the trail of action afterwards and see what actually transpired.
I guess I would take issue with some of it. The thought process that we want a man who does this as our leader, who is out for the best deal possible at all costs all the time, it doesn't, I'm not seeing good fruit from it. I don't think the markets want the best deal ever. I think the markets would like solid,
Stability.
responsible stability
Sure.
that could be planned around. I think Trump does a disservice to the American people being willy-nilly on and off again, doing the taco thing. I haven't seen where I'm a big fan of that it's like he's negotiated some great new deal. I think that's causing problems. The other idea, there was a lot of heat thrown at Hunter Biden, probably rightfully so. Most politicians, the other idea I would interject at this point is the Trump family wealth and how much it has grown in the first 100 days. And if you have any defense for that, or if that, when I see it taking the numbers don't matter, but tripling a net wealth that was huge anyway in 100 days, legal or illegal, it is bad. Like, that is a bad look for politics. That is not what our politicians are supposed to be doing. I know all politicians have gotten richer while doing politics. As Trump does everything, he has just accelerated that just so blatantly egregious that I'm not sure why Americans are looking away from that. I'm not even sure why his own side would look away from that.
Do you have, just a side question. First of all, we need to tell everybody what taco means.
Oh,
Do you know what taco stands for?
yeah. On again, off again.
Yeah. Trump always, what is it?
Trump always
Chickens out.
chickens out.
That's what taco means.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah, that's the new lingo. I've never actually looked, because I know that there was a lot of talk for his first term, how he lost a lot of net worth, like billions. I would be interested to find out if, even with that, the new wealth spike, if it even compares to where he was before taking office. Would that matter?
Before the first term?
Like, would that matter if it was,
Right, like 2015 Trump versus today Trump or whatever.
if it's net negative 2 billion, would that matter to you?
That would sound slightly different. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that using.
Right. Okay. No, it doesn't. It doesn't defend the premise of the action now necessarily.
Let's just say the action necessary to take
the intention,
triple a billion. The numbers get pretty obscene pretty fast. Mm-hmm. And what things did you dabble in to, like, we're against selling influence. Our politicians are not supposed to be influenced by money.
But if the premise for your argument is that the purpose of getting into politics is for personal wealth for your family, then that would be a good metric to say, well, then, if you're worth 6 billion, whatever now, and now you're worth 4, then maybe some of the back level intention is different.
Yeah. I guess I would see your argument that it wouldn't be, quote unquote, a profit motive.
Right. Which doesn't mean there's not other motives for sure.
Yeah.
Right.
If that's the case.
Yeah, I wanna go back really quick, and we can come back to the family wealth thing. But the idea that you said something interesting about markets wanting kind of just a slow climb and the volatility not being in the best interest of the American people. I think my response to that would be when you're in a national and civilizational place that kind of feels like a controlled demolition a little bit. I mean, look at like, we're not there yet. And so you can either say somebody sounding the alarm is a conspiracy theorist, or you can say, hey, maybe we're just 20 years behind Europe or whatever. Europe's kind of in that place now. The EU is in this place where birth rates are looking pretty bad. Economically, things are getting way worse. And it feels to a lot of people in that situation like this is a controlled demolition. This is something maybe even intentional. Again, that's a little bit of a tinfoil hat position to take. But when we're on the precipice of that, or maybe we're already kind of slipping down that slope a little bit, I think, the idea that, we just want a holding pattern kind of falls apart, because you don't want a holding pattern toward the ground. I mean, you want...
Yeah.
If something needs to be taken apart and rebuilt, what better time to do that than now? So to the volatility comment, that's what I would say. To the family wealth thing, I guess I'm curious, like, what the allegation is. Because we've all heard plenty about the Pelosi's and how their stock trades, perform better than the best hedge fund in the world. But like, I don't understand what this is the first time I've heard this, so I'm kind of coming into this blind. But what's the allegation exactly?
The allegation is in 100 days, $2 billion to $6 billion.
That's the fact, but like, what's the mode or the means of that?
Influence. I mean, my personal accusation, it's 50 deals or 100 deals. I don't care. My accusation would be influence peddling by our president and his family.
Similar to like Hunter being on the board of Burisma and all this stuff, you're saying like
Hunter should be embarrassed. Like Hunter should be embarrassed. He didn't shoot high enough. He
in comparison.
No, I'm asking a sincere question though. Like, is that his kids are taking positions that they haven't earned, or they're I just don't know any of the facts here at all.
I don't know specifically what has been absolutely the most lucrative in there. I'm just saying, using, that is not a normal accumulation of wealth because you are a smart and good person who is working hard. That is using influence to secure the best deal that you could through some kind of multiplying type scheme.
Yeah, I would be curious to see that like 10 or 20 year graph of the net worth of Trump or his family.
And by what means?
I agree. I mean, that's a bad look.
Yeah.
Tripling in 100 days, like, you'd need a good explanation for that. Maybe there is one, but I don't know.
Of the report card you speak of, that would be one
calculation for sure.
Mark, I would say, like, what are you using what is going on with your wealth building or not? What is going on with your personal assets?
Right.
And some of that, I mean, we're talking about an 80-year-old guy at this point. So that takes the form of legacy building, not him personally. I am not actually saying that him personally trying to accumulate more is what is exactly going on. I am just saying, if you look at that family unit, the presidency has been very good to them.
Yeah. So I do have a graph here from Forbes, but it looks like all these numbers will be disputed, I'm sure. But it looks like in 2015, 2016, before the election, he was worth about $4.5 billion. So it's just not that much, right? And then by the end of his first term, he was at about 2.1.
So he went down to on the
he split his net worth in half.
Yep.
Then slow climb back up into 22, it looks like, up to 3, but still not close. Then back down to 2.5. And then looks just like you said, though, looks like in about the last year, he's back up to 5.7. So I guess the hard part about that is intentionality. And how do we go about figuring out what that actually is? No guarantee of winning a second time. you know, and
I would love to see what's driving that. Like, is it just miraculously good timing of stock trades, or is it businesses of his that have appreciated, and why have they appreciated? Like, I think it's easy to try to draw, a line from A to B without really understanding the mechanics of what's driving it.
Yeah. So it says in 2024, at the beginning of the beginning of the term, the end of 2024, Trump's media company began trading on the NASDAQ. So he took a company public.
Yep.
And that's why. So
that's where the bulk of it's been driven by Truth.
March 26th. Yeah.
Of this year.
Truth Social, I think.
Okay.
It sounds like. So, yeah.
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 And I mean, that is the point of taking a company public, is to generate a lot of wealth.
Yeah. Right.
But
yeah. I don't know. I guess I'm kind of split on the issue.
I don't think you could argue that using the position of president while doing that.
Yeah. March 2024. So he wasn't president yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was running for president. That had to do too with Elon's purchase it had to do with him being kicked off X.
Yeah.
And then starting his own thing.
Yep.
So, yeah. Interesting.
That does seem to be the intention behind that company. I mean, from the beginning, it seemed like that was basically, okay, you're not going to let me on Twitter. Well, then I'm going to go start my own thing like that. I don't know.
And because of the following and because of, the movement, it was just instantaneously had millions and millions of subscribers. And right. So that's valuable.
There was a certain point in time when everybody and their mother was going and starting like a Twitter alternative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And most of those seem to have kind of fizzled out, but
what was the one on the left? Do you remember Blue Sky?
Sounds like a Jeff Bezos company or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it was something like that. And I'm not sure how to, but I mean, okay. So that gets into kind of the next thing is just polarization. Like that seems like such a huge rift.
Are you okay with the polarization, and do you look forward to a third term of Trump and what that will do?
I think that there's a term limit.
Oh, so you are saying that you would be against Trump if he finds a way to run for a third term?
Yeah, I don't see that happening.
I know you don't see it, but would that be a line in the sand for you?
Depends by what means. You mean if he can get well, obviously. I think that goes without saying.
I think my line in the sand would come before that even. Yeah.
If Congress
absolutely.
If Congress amends the Constitution, which is what it would take, right? You'd have to ratify the amendment. Takes was it 2/3 of this? Yeah. So if it's not done through that, then anything else for a third term run is just unacceptable.
Well,
and it's on record.
That's nice to hear.
Yeah.
Listen,
You don't think that that's popular? You don't think that that's a mainstream, popular?
Man, all I'm saying is the idea has been flirted with enough, and Trump definitely flirts with his ideas before he does them. And I think, I wouldn't put it past him. I think it is a line. I think there's a lot of people that would differentiate that, but I think plenty of his.
Listen, Obama's had how many terms now? You don't need to be the one in the White House to have a third term. Right. So I don't think. Yeah, to me that sounds a little bit crazy, but maybe there's more to it than I see. I'd be shocked if he made a play that direction.
I would find it very hard pressing to think that that's not like an 80-20. That's not going to fly here.
Okay.
Also,
so is sending the military to Chicago 80-20, or you think?
Do you think that's going to happen?
I don't know. It's being floated a lot.
We're moving fast.
They're in DC now.
You don't like that?
No. I think using our military in a civilian setting is a terrible idea. AKA Kent State.
Say that again.
AKA Kent State.
Okay.
Using non-trained officers in this is bad optic.
Very bad optic. I agree with that. But at what
I'm
point?
not sure what was going so bad in DC that.
Oh, interesting. Stand by. Man, I wish I would have had a little bit more time to prepare for this because I do have all the data for crime statistics in DC. But I don't know if I'll be able
As
to pull them
compared to
Like
Montgomery, Alabama, or Memphis?
like
or?
600% increase in the last 4 years of car theft. That's a problem. If DC was a state, it would have the number one murder rate.
Number one?
Yeah.
Per capita.
Per capita. Is that a problem?
Versus, yeah. That's a
that-
cherry-picked number because you're talking about state versus a city. If we go to Memphis, Tennessee, or Mississippi,
Sure.
we
Right.
could have worse numbers in a city.
Right. But it's also in the last 13 years tripled, which is kind of contrary to, I guess, nationwide murder rate trends. I think the whole, I'm not sure how I feel, but I totally agree with you. I think that it looks really bad to militarize the police that way, or to bring in, they're stopping crime. It's working. It might not look good, but it's working.
Yeah, I think that the proof will ultimately be in the pudding. What's the alternative when you've got out of control crime statistics? I'm not saying there's not an alternative. I'm not an expert here, but when you've got mayors and you've got people even on the state level that are basically just turning a blind eye to what's happening, and you've got people who feel increasingly unsafe in a city that they've lived in for 10, 20, 30 years, like at what point is, okay, we have to do something? Like, why is that an inappropriate response?
Do you think that point was reached, or do you think this is a flex of Trump's muscles?
I mean, who's to say where that point is? I don't know if we've got a number of, okay, you have to have this murder rate per capita before that's appropriate. So I don't know if that point was reached, but I don't think that to me, I don't see bad motives. I would guess you disagree with that, and you think there's some ulterior intentions with what he's doing.
Yeah. I mean, as with many things he does, it's just to keep flexing and to use power as much as he can use it. We say we're for law and order. We have systems to do all those things. I mean, Congress could give DC more money to spend. DC has been historically always underfunded. It doesn't have a representative voice in our democracy. And without a voice in our democracy, it doesn't get money very well from the federal government. I would suspect that some funding wouldn't hurt DC.
I think the problem with that take is that these are not cities where people have been, raising the alarm, and all these leaders on the left have not been saying, "Hey, help us! We need help. It's getting rough out here." Like, I think that the feeling, at least on the right, is that like people have just been allowing this to happen and turning a blind eye to it. So it'd be to me, it'd be if there was 10 years of a clear track record of, okay, they've been asking and they've been doing the best they can with the funds they have, and it just hasn't been enough. Like, that would be more compelling, but I don't see that.
Yeah.
You mentioned the correlation to statehood versus city, and DC has 6 times higher murder rate than New York City.
New York City, yeah.
And sometimes I feel like with these conversations too, like it always feels like the answer is throw money at it, like fund them better. And I don't know. Some cities that are run so poorly like this, I don't think that's going to land where we want it to.
Well, you've been, a cop where you've seen, okay, I'm doing my job, I'm getting the bad guys, I'm bringing them to justice, and then you've got, DAs or whoever that are basically just putting people right back on the street. So yes, is there supposed to be a system and checks and balances in place and all of that? Absolutely. But there's cities where the reality is things are so politicized that really there's no justice anymore.
And if that's the intention too, like if the intention for Trump is just to politicize it and make it look like blue mayor doing terrible job, red president comes in, fixes everything, I wouldn't be surprised if that's part of the motivation. Like, hey, you guys are running the city into the ground.
That's fair.
You're running the city into the ground. Watch how you fix it. So I don't know. I guess they have all of the data on here.
So should we be rooting for it to succeed or for it to fail then?
I don't know. I don't know. What do you think?
Succeed or fail? I guess the idea I would get at here in this case is, and it's core to the Republican conservative ethos, is that being more hard, being more pharisaical in the application of laws and punishment leads to goodness. And the celebration of that, get them. They're carjacking. Get them. They're murderers. Is that really what we want? Like, is that really? Because there's justice. Like, there's justice where you reap what you sow. I would suspect the truth lies somewhere in the middle in DC. I don't think applying all of your laws more viciously with more harshness leads to what I want to live in. I personally, there's some level of safety. I mean, the rounding up all of the homeless, that's very Trump. Round them up, push them out, move on. You're poors. We don't want you here. I find that problematic at best.
That happened in D.C.?
Absolutely.
Okay, I hadn't
bulldozed the encampments.
What happened though? Then where'd they go?
Hard to know. They say, well, we're going to get them help, or we're going to do whatever, or we're going to put them in homeless places. You call homeless places in D.C., they're all full. There's really not. So, like, where did they go? Did we just institutionalize them? Another, like, paid the private prison business and a pipeline to fund the private prison business is problematic in my view at best. And I in the law and order side, you're all about being physically conservative till it comes to being harsh to somebody and putting them in prison, and then we got all the money we want.
There's an interesting tie-in here with kind of where we started in this conversation when it comes to like the church's role and the state's role and what can happen, and things can go really bad when they're kind of one and the same. And I think this is an area that I've been doing a lot of thinking and reflecting over the last year and a half. Is like, okay, what is the state's role? What is the church's role? And I read, I think it might have been Eric Metaxas in his letter to the American Church book, and there might have been one or two other books I read in there, where a couple different authors made the same point, and that was when the state and the church have almost done this flip-flop where all of a sudden you've got the church and like you're saying, hard-nosed Republicans who are all about law and order and justice, but they're also Christians. And then you've got the state that's taking care of the homeless and throwing money at this and throwing money at that. And those are like exactly opposite how the roles are supposed to work. The state is supposed to preside over justice and law and order, and that's biblical. I think that's Romans 13. And then the church needs to be playing the role of taking care of orphans and widows. And I don't know if drug addicts are on that list or not, but the roles have been reversed, and that causes a lot of problems. So should people look at the state finally doing what it's supposed to do and enforcing laws and say, yeah, get them? I don't actually have a big problem with that. I think what we ought to be doing, maybe the Christian response should be, okay, if the state's going to play its intended role a little better, maybe we should focus on playing our intended role a little better as well and be taking care of these people that need to be taken care of, because that's never, I don't see that as the state's job.
That's a hard sell, man.
Say that part again.
If the church is MAGA, being salt and light in the world is a hard sell.
Yeah, I can't judge anybody's heart or their motives. I don't think it's as a divisive message, even in a kind of Republican church as you think, that we're supposed to be playing our role in caring for people and helping people. I think that there's a Christian impulse that's kind of pent up and a little bit latent, because you see all of this need, but then, there's a program for that. There's a program for that. There's a program for that. So my question is like, okay, where do I fit in this? I have this impulse, this Christian impulse to help and to put money and to put time and resources toward where I can help. And it seems like my help's not needed. So I don't think I'm alone in that. And I don't know. I'm sure there's a radical MAGA edge that doesn't care, but.
Yeah. The celebrations I've witnessed over cruelty, AKA like when we sent the first batch to South America, that was
the deportation
to a maximum security prison of people who we said were hardened gangbangers. That's been pretty well documented. That their definition of hardened gangbanger and mine might be different.
Documented how?
Just
like you're talking about Abrego Garcia, you're talking about Okay.
I mean, Abrego Garcia would be the most visible one of those. Whether you want to hang a star on him for being a good citizen or not.
Oh, he's not a citizen.
Being
touche.
Yeah.
He's just a Maryland man.
Yeah, just a Maryland man.
That is one of the issues that was like, it seemed like there was pretty high consensus across the aisle for here illegally, committed crimes while you're here, you have to go home.
I guess what I would be interested in hear from you as a police officer is currently all of the enforcement around undocumented immigration is being used to cause as much fear as possible in our immigrant populations. And as a policeman, you want to be in a community where people communicate with you, that all people have the same rights. And we call it sanctuary cities, but it's really cities where you
have decided that,
that you want the police to be able to talk to people.
Right.
That's like the driving force of calling it a sanctuary city, is you want your local police to be able to deal with the people who are living there without fear.
You're saying an approach that gins up too much fear is not the right approach.
No, it's really not.
Right.
I don't know why that is our approach. It doesn't make any sense to me unless you're just.
Is it a rip the Band-Aid off fast approach? Does that seem like what's happening?
No, because I mean, we all know where they work. We all know it's not rocket science.
We do here.
You don't think you do in the city?
Not a chance. Not a chance.
Yeah.
I would think that there would be a very different position on that, rural versus urban.
Could also be related to the fact that it's a tsunami of people coming up over that border too. If you don't have a system that's built to handle however many millions of cases there are, maybe it's not the system's fault. Maybe it's the sheer volume of cases.
I mean, the volume definitely has something to do with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so would are you more in favor of like shutting off the valve at the border and then dealing with everything inside?
I mean, that's what we're doing.
Yeah, but like personally,
I'm also curious. I was going to ask the same question. Like, what is the perfect,
what
or
am
what's
I
the
in
best
favor of?
Yeah, what's the best way to do it? You think?
I'm in favor of quickly and concisely converting. Okay, this gets into a little theory of law and theory of order and theory of justice.
Okay,
so
send it.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, that sounds good.
This is the stuff that actually kind of is a big deal to me. So
here, put this a little.
The American system is good because our rules mostly reflect reality. You get to other places and their rules have no bearing in reality. And the thing about America is every so often we know land rules or like even immigration. We've had several amnesties in American history where we said everybody but here before 1910 is, drum roll, a citizen. All you got to do is prove you were here before 1910 and you're a citizen. So we've done that to regroup at a certain point and say, this is where we are and we're moving forward. I am not proposing that we do that. What I am proposing is leaving the illegal, lawless system we have in place with a Congress and a Senate that's on your side. Means you're only leaving it there because it's a winning item to, like abortion, to gin up your base when we come around. And Donald did a lot of ginning up of his base around illegal immigration.
For sure.
The reality is at 1.4 birth rate, we're going to need some people, a lot of people. And I don't think you can argue with that at all.
And the great thing is that we've got a nation and a economic and cultural system that is like a magnet for a lot of really great people. So I don't see a line from that to, hey, we just got to turn this valve of like undocumented immigration on from the southern border.
I mean,
A plus B does not equal C there.
Off right now, pretty much. There's really
is that
not
a good
much.
thing?
I think leaving the perverse incentives in place that perpetuate it and not addressing them means it's just a matter of a change or whatever until that happens again. And this would just be parallels I would drive. So what I would propose very simply is that people need to be documented. They need to have a right to a work permit at a beginning place.
Right.
That work permit gives you the right to be here and be working for a period of time to be determined. I am uncomfortable with that work permit being provided by the employer because that sounds a little like slavery to me.
Yeah, I agree.
That's a recipe for disaster. I would like it to be independent. I think that could be provided, like the employers could provide documentation for the people that they currently have working for them.
Yeah.
And that could be a very good starting place. the other thing is enforcement of this. If you remove the jobs, the immigrants leave. Like, if there's not work in America, they leave. So just make the employer responsible for the illegals that they have employed. In a 5-year program, starting with a $500 fine the first year, you document them and you pay $500 and you can have your illegal employee. Ramp that up to an unattainable number, 10, 15,000 at the end of 5 to 7 years, and give us time to work this out and provide the documentation through the employer and provide the enforcement through the IRS. And we don't have to run around snatching people. And
how many of the households, I know maybe it's 20 million individuals, but there's probably, I don't know how many households that is.
Yeah.
How many of those illegal immigrants and their households are employed to some degree? Like, what percentage? Because you hear a lot about, hotel vouchers and debit cards and all these programs. I'm genuinely curious, is it 90% or is it 65% or like?
I think the last time, this might help answer the question. I don't know exactly the figures, but last time when you were on, Ezra, I think that we researched how long it takes before the taxpayer expense for an asylee becomes
positive,
net positive for.
It was a period of years, like 10,
4 to 8, maybe. Was it 5 to 10? So maybe that helps a little bit to kind of. I don't know.
I just don't know the premise that these are all just, people out there doing honest work. And I just don't know. I honestly don't know if that's borne out in the data or if it's not.
In our county, it is born.
Like, 100%. That's not questionable. But we live in an interesting, unique area, and there's a lot of big cities that where, the economics of it are different.
If you're advocating for redoing the asylum system, that is very different than wholeheartedly endorsing the ICE raids and ICE propaganda and snatching people with undocumented. Right. As a police officer, you had to have your ID, you had to give them a name, you had to be able to make a complaint to a superior. ICE is operating out of very different rules and in the American system, it's supposed to be lawful, and ICE feels very lawless, snatching people. I don't think it's a good look. If I am uncomfortable with my daughter getting pulled over by an unmarked police car, which I am, for the record.
me too. Agreed. My girls don't drive. They're far from that.
Masked men snatching people and not giving ID is uncool in America's system.
You mean ICE not identifying themselves? Is that what you're saying?
If you can articulate that you're going after this bad actor.
100%.
That is very different than busting down the door of the farmer and grabbing 3 wands because they're milking cows.
Right.
Or picking whatever.
Right.
So, and not differentiating between that is their own fault. Again, that goes back to the atmosphere of fear that is being created purposefully.
Right.
And that, I would argue that is a bad idea.
I'm curious, what is the motive behind creating that atmosphere of fear?
I don't know. What is the motive behind that? What do you think they gain?
I mean, dissuasion from people coming back? I don't know.
Also,
I'm asking.
There was reporting early on of high levels of self-deportation. So was that signaling to that, you think, maybe?
Yeah. In all of this, I mean, that is some of it. If you're making that argument...
I don't know. I'm just wondering. I'm trying to get inside people's heads and kind of assuming some intent here, which is hard to do. But the fear side of it, I think could have been completely avoided. I totally agree. I just don't think that there's no need for the demonization. There's no need for the broad stroke approach. I think if you have a leaky pipe, you probably shut off the main first.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you can go about fixing your asylum laws and figuring out how to do all that stuff. That's fine. Shut down the border if you need to. Okay. Yeah. Beef up the port of entries. I don't care. There's two sides of the coin for me. There is the look at these armed thugs. This is the Gestapo. This is Hitler's new rise, blah, 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 whatever, which as much as there is that cult-like feeling on the right for Trump, there is plenty of the other side where he's a threat to democracy and the whole thing is coming in and the sky is falling. And at the same point being like, you know what? I wish that in communities like the one we live in, there would be a little bit more common sense with how this is kind of carried out. You know, it needs to be less of, well, that's just the letter of the law and that's what it says, so you're gone. Especially for people who are hardworking members of society, contributing, have families. Like this is where, and we'll kind of tie it back into like the faith aspect of it. Well, you know, in Hebrews and Matthew, you know, hospitality to strangers and all of these different things. Like how can we reconcile both with Romans 13?
Yeah.
You know, that seems like a hard gauge.
Yeah. And Ezra, you I think are the one who kind of, I don't know if it was before church or one time we were chatting about the difference between the laws that are on the books and the laws that are enforced and how, you know, okay, yeah, it's illegal to come to our country and work on a farm, but then everybody knows it's happening and nobody enforces it. And then all of a sudden we decide, hey, we're going to enforce it. And I think that that's one of the best cases I've heard for some level of common sense enforcement here, where, okay, it's not really, you're playing by two different sets of rules when this thing is happening and you know it's happening, but you turn a blind eye and then all of a sudden you decide, hey, you know, we're going to crack down. Doesn't strike me as particularly fair.
Yeah. Productive, I guess I would say. That's the other reality is even Trump articulated that our food system quits working at some point. Like it really does. So without enough labor. And
that kind of signals to me like maybe the intention isn't so nefarious. Like maybe the whole point of it isn't just to rile up fear and use power. Like maybe we have an existential problem here. We have to fix it. How do we go about fixing it?
I guess I would say I would go past the lawlessness of it at the front door and go to also when someone is abducted by ICE, it is not an accessible system to rate. If my friend gets abducted tomorrow, if that's a local police department, I can see them, I can visit them, I can document what they're charged with, what they're doing, what the process is.
Or this due process.
The process around all of this is like we grab somebody and we move them 2 states away in secret, don't tell you where they are. It is hard work to find out where they are. That is the fear part of this that I think is really nefarious. That is the system we're using. America operates with the assumption that we can all see the workings of the machinery, see the workings of justice, and down to I can go pull the court records and read the whole case. That is not what is happening in this case. And I would argue that if they could move to a more judicial system with clear goalposts or goalposts, maybe not the right word, rails, clear
Guardrails. Yeah.
It would be much better. All I see is the administration taking joy in the unclearness, like in the. I don't see them moving toward that. I think they really like this confusion and this fear. That's my accusation, is that they are perpetuating it and they like it and they're continuing to do it. And as a Christian, I don't even like. I'm not sure what it has. I shouldn't even say as a Christian. I'm just not even sure what it has to do with being lawful, being just. It really has no relation to that. And you can say they're criminals in that they broke the law to be here. Okay, then we have a prescription of what to do with that. I'm just not sure why the program is shrouded in secrecy and not transparent.
Yeah, no, it's hard to find too much to disagree with what you just said. I don't understand who benefits from a lack of transparency. I think it's the comment about the administration taking joy in the confusion of all of it. To me, that's coming from a place of really not liking or maybe even hating some people and saying, okay, I see you doing a bad thing and I know why you're doing it because I know that you're a bad person. That seems like a stretch to me. But the idea, yeah, what you're saying about, okay, shrouded in secrecy, wearing masks, busting in, abducting people. I mean, I don't understand why that would be necessary.
If the undercover police do it, again, that is all very documented. And
what about the U.S. Marshals?
It would be slightly
kind of
more
similar.
oblique there.
Yeah. I wonder if it's just because it's a federalized agency that, you can't go down to your local police department and pull the file.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also like a volume issue too.
Yeah.
I mean, if 10,000 people want to know where one person went, I don't know. I think that these macro issues are just like, yeah, you can't. It's just so hard to wrap my head around how you would do it to please everybody.
A harsher border, like East Germany, West Germany, a wall, no movement back and forth. I don't think that's actually the relationship we want to have with Mexico. I think I'm not saying we want undocumented immigration, but I am saying they're our biggest trading partner and people have families on both sides, and freedom of movement is very good for the human experiment. And being harsher on a border, like I'm not waking up tomorrow and saying, man, let's be harsher on the Canadian border. That would really lead to goodness. I think it's kind of nice having a neighbor that shares most of your values, and that going to Canada and back is not that big of a deal. And we buy some Canadian things and they buy some New York things. And, borders always lead to some smuggling and a little bit of sin.
Sounds like
Canada and Mexico, though, that's kind of apples and oranges as far as I'm concerned. You've got, a very Western, modern, mature country, which, there's a good faith relationship with Canada. There's the rule of law. And then you've got a country that the cartels have like an insane amount of influence. So I don't see Mexico as the same kind of partner. Economically, maybe there's an economic case to be made, but from a values and a culture and a rule of law perspective, it seems like apples and oranges.
I guess what I'm getting at is the cartel issue is an issue of drugs and money related to drugs. And solving that might have more to do with our prohibition on drugs than being harsher at the border. Would be my opinion.
Say more. What do you mean our prohibition of drugs?
So our prohibition of drugs makes drugs extremely profitable. And when in my opinion, the experiment of prohibition on alcohol in America was the biggest boom to crime ever. When crime pays really, really well and it is common and everywhere, it is profitable and business is good. And the cartels' business is good. I think that is less to do about the border and more to do about the profitability of the drug trade. And I think the lesson of prohibition was when we legalized alcohol and taxed it and dealt with it in a different way, we took the profit motive out of crime and parked it in business. And we are losing whatever war on drugs. I would articulate that we've lost it long ago, and I'd like to see a new policy that changes the economic reality of the border.
What do you propose?
I would maintain that a lot of the homeless problem is a drug problem, and it has to do with personal problems, and solving for drugs is much more complex. And I think we would all agree that it'd be nice if we could just limit supply and if we could just limit supply and people would be good.
Yeah.
But that is the failed part of prohibition.
Right.
Limiting supply and people be good, because it's an inverse relation. When you try and limit supply, it becomes more valuable.
Yeah, I understand that part of it. I understand all of that. I just don't know if it necessarily correlates with narcotics. Because you don't get a narcotics store like you get a liquor store. You just can't. And you can't pressure.
Europe does very different things than the U.S. does with narcotics. I think there are some other models out there that we could look at that probably would. Honestly, I think from an economic standpoint, we could probably pay for everybody to get high. Russia does it. They call it vodka, and they make sure it's cheap because peasants don't revolt. Anyway, that's a side note, but
that's a tangent.
But I'm just saying, in my own community, would I really mind if all the people who are getting high just went to the hospital and they shot them up? I wouldn't mind, because they'd all be in the same place and they wouldn't need to do bad things to get their drugs. And if you're going to get high, you're going to get high.
Okay, can I take a little bit of a left turn real quick?
Yeah.
It is related. And I want to come at this open-mindedly, because I'm maybe a little dogmatic in this area, but I want to try to come at it open-mindedly. I think that the argument of, like, okay, it shouldn't happen, but it's going to happen, so let's make sure it happens safely. Like, that's applied in a lot of different areas. Drugs is one area that's applied, but I've heard the same with abortion from Christians who are a little bit more liberal or whatever. I don't see that as a very Christian approach to anything. I don't know, but I don't. That might just be my personality too. Like, to what degree should we, and this is kind of like an us as believers question, like, to what degree should we say, okay, it's bad, but it's going to happen, so we're going to help it happen in a safe way? And to what degree is the utilitarian ethics approach not really congruent with right and wrong, sin and righteousness?
I mean, it depends who's
question.
providing it. If the state says it's cheaper to do that, does that feel different to you than, yeah. Like, to what degree do you want the state to be Christian?
Like, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill. Are those Christian values? To the degree that they are, I want the state to be Christian. Like, if the 10 Commandments are uniquely Christian, then yeah, I'm okay with the state being Christian to that degree. Yeah, do I want a state religion? I think that's an example of too much alignment that gets really dangerous with the church and the state. But murder, theft, like, if those are Christian values, then I want a Christian state.
Murder and theft aren't really on the, or I think universally would be agreed that they're off the table as bad things.
Not universally, but yes.
You
mean in Western culture?
Yeah.
Yes. Right. Yeah.
So the question is where the line is drawn between things that are very clearly like, okay, this isn't a cultural value, this is bad and evil, all the way to the other things that are very gray. Is it a question of where the line should be drawn then?
I mean, are you saying your position would be that you want, yeah.
I wanna live in a country where evil, sinful things are harder to do, not just because they grate against the human conscience, but also because the culture and the legal system looks at them poorly. Like, the more friction that exists between a person doing an evil thing, the better, right?
I don't want the evil thing to be easier, but I would articulate that truth is self-evident, and that I'm not sure at some base level I want the government to provide for a framework. I am uncomfortable with, I know what I want for my family and people I care about as far as abortion. I want them to celebrate when they find out that they're pregnant. That's what I want. Mm-hmm. I think it's untenable that Plan B is looked at the same as an 8-month abortion.
Morally.
By our government.
Okay.
Does that make me not a purist? I guess. Somewhere between. I think culturally we could come to agreement somewhere between first and second trimester.
Is the reason that the framework is that way, and I'm going to direct this towards Evan then too. There's a positive direction is progress versus complete win.
Yep.
What are your thoughts about that? Like, it's not that it's a moral concession. It's that
that's hard.
When you start to look at things in terms of numbers and souls, to find a way to influence the state and provide some kind of policy that we could all get behind, or at least on paper, to save all the second and third trimester babies, whatever it is. Because some of these are, again, pretty, like, the numbers for people who think that abortion up until birth is okay is a very low number.
Yeah.
Like, it's definitely not a mainstream number. So I guess my framework, my question to you then would be, how can you delineate from being a purist on the issue and saying there's also a policy solution that may save millions if you are able to meet them at that point, say whatever week number you want to get to. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yeah.
It's kind of like a, kind of what the end line looks like, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, again, to use kind of a nerdy word in my answer here, I think it was my very first semester at Clarkson. I transferred there as a sophomore. That I took like an ethics class. It was kind of in the legal discipline. That's how they had it there. And it wasn't really business ethics. It was just kind of like general ethics. And so from a worldly, agnostic or atheistic perspective, utilitarianism is kind of the gold standard for like how to build an ethical framework without God. Right. Whatever creates, the most aggregate good, if you added up all the good that it creates versus all the other options, and and how do you define good? Well, that it's net wins versus
right.
It's loss. Just kind of okay. Let's look at the aggregate, right? And I don't think utilitarianism is a very Christian principle, to be honest with you. I don't really see that in the scripture. What I see is right and wrong, justice and mercy. None is righteous, not even one. And that's why every single person, from bad criminals to your average Joe, needs Jesus, because everybody has sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. So that, I think, is it fair to say that influences my angle on this question? Yes, and I don't know if I'm interpreting the scripture properly or not on that one, but I tend to think that as believers, we ought to want to live in a country where legally bad things are hard to do and good things are easy to do. And so, is there some bell curve where, okay, really bad abortion enforcement doesn't have good outcomes, and then somewhere in the middle there's the best utilitarian outcomes, and then it gets bad again. That's not compelling to me. I don't know.
I do have a solution for you, Everett. Have you ever thought of moving to a country that has Sharia law?
Sharia law? I don't see Sharia law as particularly Christian either.
I mean,
well, by definition, it's not.
By definition, it's not. But as a thought experiment of purism and making bad things difficult, they do a very good job of that.
So the point you're making, and it's a really good point, is okay, let's say that all abortion is illegal, then how is it enforced? What's the penalty for infraction? And that's a really important conversation to have, because saying that it ought to not be legal is very different than saying that you should be thrown in jail if you're a 16-year-old who
exactly
is those are nobody's saying the latter. Right. You can say the former without saying the latter. So it's a really important question to ask, and I don't know what consequences should look like in that case, or with drugs or whatever. I mean, expanding it back to the drug topic.
Would a potential solution then, if something's outlawed on the books, not prosecuting the person in a situation of crisis like that, but going after people who are knowingly committing this act, like abortion doctors? Is that a different approach? If it's illegal on the books already.
It's hard to hear, some of those horror stories about like Kermit Gosnell and some of these abortionists who just were butchers, and not think like, okay, how is this allowed to go on for as long as it did? What is the legal climate here that just made that fly under the radar for so many years? And you could make the point, well, okay, what if it was more accessible, then people wouldn't have had to go? And I don't know. You can make two different points from that same anecdote, but I
guess
I think it's a good question to ask. Who do you penalize? Who do you punish in that scenario?
I guess many of these things I am uncomfortable with the blindness of good government justice doing this job.
Just being inept, being unable to do it
Well,
properly.
it should be blind, to be fair. Justice should be blind.
Right.
The rules should be the rules. That is actually my argument for the border and for many of these things is we are continuing lawlessness and the rules aren't the rules. And there's some other set of things that are actually under operation. But for many of these things, they are drugs, whatever. I don't believe judges and justice have any dealing in good outcomes.
It's a very pessimistic view of the world.
I mean, tell me recidivism from jail is working real good for you.
Yeah, no, I actually agree. I agree with a bunch of that.
The tools of prosecuting for murder seem very different than the government getting to a good outcome for my son being a drug addict.
It's probably because of his earlier point is maybe that's not the job of the government.
And strong, I mean, I think the drugs, it's pretty clearly documented that strong communities with engagement actually help people win that fight.
Mm-hmm. It goes back to the question you asked, though, about, okay, whether you talk about drugs, whether you talk about abortion, who's the perpetrator and who's the victim? Because there's a really, kind of lack of nuance, naive thing that says, okay, if you're a druggie doing drugs, then you're the bad one. Or if you're, and then you can think about it a little bit more critically and realize, okay, somebody is the supplier and somebody's above them and somebody's above them. So I think that it's a fair point to make that the girl who feels like abortion is the best option or the guy who's getting high every day may be more of a victim than a perpetrator. That's a fair point to make, but I don't think that means that you just decriminalize everything.
I actually have been on a similar arc in the last probably 10 years where I used to be a little bit more of a purist in some of these conversations, I guess you'd say, but have become more, especially through my policing job, being able to see kind of the external circumstances around why people are doing what they're doing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's almost always, like you just said, well, is it a victim or is it the offender? Right. Is there layers of abuse there? Is there something bad that happened to them? And most of those conversations have to be dealt with at an individual level. And it makes it hard to give broad prescriptions for 350 million people who all have different stories and different experiences. And how can we apply justice the same to all of them? It just seems like a false choice. Like how could we do that without, it takes time. It takes resource. Like it takes conversation and relationship. You expect a judge to be able to do that and give out fair ruling?
I don't. That's part of,
so what's the answer then?
I guess I would say it this way. I always hear people, the law. Man, please shield me from the law, Lord. Please keep me far away from the law. The law kills. The law convicts as guilty, all of us, all the time. The law, while following it leads to some goodness, leads to wholeness in your life. Like, follow the law or don't follow the law. It's better to follow the law.
Yeah, but the question would be why?
Why follow the law or why?
Why are the outcomes better to follow the law? And can the law also protect?
Because the law shields you from the worst of humanity. The law shields us from the worst of sin.
I hear what you're saying. I think scripturally speaking, there's a really interesting progression in codes of law, and you have these kind of distinct ages in the Bible almost where, Moses is kind of the great lawgiver, right? And you had prior to Moses 2,500 years or how, depends if you use the Masoretic or the Septuagint, I don't know, but however long of lawlessness. And then Moses came along and there was the law, and then Jesus is the fulfillment, not the abolishment, but the fulfillment of the law. And the point you're making is, okay, compared to that period of, I'm kind of spiritualizing this a little bit, but compared to that period of, the law, which is heavy and hard, Jesus is better, right? Freedom is better. The law of liberty is better, but lawlessness is worst, right? Lawlessness is worse than the law. So there's this progression, biblically speaking, where you have to have the law in between the lawlessness and then the law of liberty. And I think the same applies in this conversation. Lawlessness is by far the worst of all possible outcomes. And the law in this world and in this kingdom and in this age is kind of the best we have until, believers operate differently, but I'm just saying, generally speaking.
Yeah. I mean, I would be able to articulate that I don't want to live with no law. I'm not. As a thought experiment, capital A, anarchy sounds like a bad plan. I think the best traditions of grace are withholding law when it's due to create wholeness.
Can you work grace into a worldly legal system? I'd love for the answer to be yes, but that
sounds kind of paradoxical, doesn't it?
I'd love for the answer to be yes.
I think
gracious judgment.
think our good police officers do it every day. I would articulate that I know story after story of young men who were problematic and received the correct response that had nothing to do with the law from our local connected police officers.
Because the system put something in place that helped the officers do that, or just because the officers were good men?
I would articulate more because they were good men.
Exactly, right.
Who had authority and chose to exercise it.
Yep.
And the maturity to exercise discretion.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because the right answer isn't
the best of policing looks like that. Like,
yeah.
Absolutely.
The best answer isn't always throwing a book.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm going to call your father. I'm not going to write you a ticket, or we're going to go see somebody, or, you've been speeding, but you're going to school. I know your parents just divorced. Mm-hmm. I'm going to let this slide. Don't do it again, because I'll still be here. Mm-hmm. Long-term relationship building. I don't think policing is like that everywhere. I do think in rural New York State, it's more like that than not like that.
Right.
Yeah. Locally, I think they're really, really good at. They're really good at people they know doing that.
That's a very different thing than decriminalize. To me, one's a reversion back to lawlessness, and one's saying, okay, now we have the law, it's clear, and now how do we how do we give grace and how do we
Produce
work
the best
grace?
outcome. Yeah.
Right. And so I think one is like a post-law, Jesus era mentality, and one is a, hey, let's go back to Egypt mentality. And
do you think the church gets that wrong a lot? Do you think the church looks at? Do you think that the church does a good job with that? Like, generally speaking, about bringing people in, kind of instead of this is what the law says, you have to do X, Y, and Z. I'm not specifically talking about Christianity necessarily, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I think my feeling on some of that stuff is that often it's not as black and white as we think. And as believers, through the Holy Spirit, working that out is far more beneficial.
Yeah, I think, again, it kind of goes back to the role of church and state a little bit. I think that the church has, for so long, kind of felt like they had to be the ones that were all justice-oriented because there wasn't enough justice out there, that we've kind of fallen into those bad habits. So I don't know if the church does a particularly good job at that. We need to do a good job at it. We need to be the place people go for grace and for mercy and for real lasting change, not a book getting thrown at you, but okay, how do we meet you where you're at and help you get on a totally different path toward Jesus and toward life and life more abundantly?
I would push back against some of that idea in that the church being the avenue of promoting lawfulness, and like this idea that we want to make America great again, to go back to some point when all of this, like, we all knew the rules better, or like, I think a lot of things are working really, really good in our justice system. And I don't know that we're failing at this test. I couldn't articulate that I want to go back to 1950s America. I kind of like 2025. I think in general, we have moved to a place where our laws are applied more equally across all people over that time gap. I would like them to be. I would like them to be more universally, the rules to be more. I think it's very dependent on where you are right now. There is a fair amount of variation across city versus rural, right, versus what state. Mm-hmm.
Which almost affects
the whole conversation.
Exactly. But, because did you, when Sheriff Carpinelli was on, he talking, I can attest to this myself, but the idea of, I would honestly say the example of the officer you're talking about, like, that's a huge parallel to Christ. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the woman at the well, right? Absolutely. That's the woman at the well right there. Forgiveness, and then go sin no more. Yep. And this is the ultimate outcome for you. The ultimate outcome in a city isn't designed or maybe even humanly possible to facilitate that.
Because you don't know people. There's anonymity.
You don't, exactly. It's a volume problem. It's you make 30 contacts in an 8-hour period. You don't have that relationship. You can't build that rapport. Maybe if you see that person every week, maybe you could. And I actually was able to do some of that. But Sheriff Carpinelli said the same thing too. Like, you just don't have that available to you. Mm-hmm. And I think that if you were to poll law enforcement in rural versus law enforcement in cities, I think it's pretty clear that residents in both of those would have very different outlooks, typically speaking, right? As far as pro-police, not pro-police. And I think a big part of it is that community component that's missing.
Yeah.
So what do? You have to teach that. You have to teach it. You have to teach it at a human level.
I would have some vision that bringing police from the suburbs to police the inner city is problematic. Making the sort when you're not part of the culture becomes very, very hard to achieve the rural outcome. And
I'm saying I don't think it's possible.
You're saying the guy who lives there and does policing
is
different?
No.
Or are you saying he has a better...
The job outlines his abilities to have more personal connection based on call volume and interactions on a daily basis. No, not taking a rural officer, putting them in the city. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just
volume.
You have a certain amount of time that you work and you're going call to call to call, and you don't have the, I would say, luxury to sit down and talk to somebody who's in crisis.
You can have more population in a couple blocks than you have in Lewis County too. It's not even... So, I mean, yeah, volume is a big part of that. But even if your beat or whatever is this really small area, you still could have a crazy population there compared to what a rural officer has to deal with. So I think it's right. It's almost impossible to think that you could do the same level of relationship building in that context.
So I think ideally everybody would agree with the example that you gave.
Absolutely.
I don't think anybody would ever say, oh, the officer who pulled over somebody going to their daughter's graduation because he was speeding a little bit should give that guy the biggest ticket he has, right? And cops do that, unfortunately. They do stuff like that all the time. But if you could get into the police academies, if you could start to teach this humanizing side of the job, perhaps that could have some effect. But it's just the sheer population. Like you said, you could live in one block and never meet the people 3 doors down from you. So yeah.
Here's what I come back to in a lot of my kind of Christian philosophy and all of that. I don't believe you've heard the term like the ends justify the means. And to me, that is antithetical to how Christians ought to operate, because we don't have control over the ends. The idea that we do is a false sense of control or determinism. All we have as individuals is control over the means. That's all God holds the ends in his hands. We have the means. And so I believe that the purview of our role as humans, and certainly Christians, is to make sure that the means are handled in a Christ-like way, and we've got to trust God with the outcomes. So the ends justify the means. I don't like that phrase.
You voted for Trump.
Did I?
We have an assuming problem over here.
You know what they say about assuming.
I'm saying, like, if the ends don't justify the means, then why is any Christian ever considered voting for Donald Trump?
What are the ends and the means in that equation?
I mean, of the ends justify the means is the whole reason to vote for Donald Trump, because abortion or like whatever, like the reason to hold your nose and vote for Trump morally is the ends justify the means. The
concessions on character justify the vote.
Yeah.
And support.
Yeah. Like if the ends don't justify the means, yeah.
I think just a clarification point. There is obviously in the discussion that we're having a very big dividing line in what we're commanded to do as Christians, how we're supposed to treat people and what the law is versus we're talking more practical. I don't want anybody to come away from this thinking that like we're wavering on like some hard truths about when life begins or anything like that, or if that's the hill we should die on. Right. But yeah, so that's an interesting point. So what do you think about what he's saying? It's more like you said sticking up your nose, kind of ignoring the other stuff because in the end,
your nose while voting for him per se. It's very interesting. The mental trail becomes a little cloudy to me in there with what I understand about Donald Trump. If the means need to be good for good to be an outcome, like if the ends is Donald Trump as president, that's what we voted for. That's what America chose, I would say. The argument for that was he was better than the opposition, but that is in every way an ends justifies a means. Like you can't vote if the ends don't justify the means.
Yeah, well, that's the point I would make. When I talk about the means, I'm talking about each person individually, how we carry ourselves, the decisions we make every single day. Yeah. And so a lot of people, because of that means question, okay, what's my role in this, have even decided not to participate at all with the political system because they don't feel they can do that, with a clear conscience. Yeah. So I would yeah, I think that that's probably the third option that everybody should have in mind when it comes to our two-party system as well. I could just wash my hands of this altogether. Yeah. But it's a question of conscience. It's a question of we have no control over the outcomes. We think we kind of can predict the outcomes, but we ultimately can't. So right now in this moment of time, what sits well with my conscience? Which way is the Holy Spirit leading? That's what I mean by the means. And
I understand.
Plenty of people looked at the option of not participating in the political system at all, and their conscience just didn't sit well with that. So then they're making this choice. I don't know.
What you were saying before too is like if you're making a argument that this is the better out of two terrible options, which is kind of what you said. It's like your voting for him is the justification for the means, which would be the alternative candidate. Then I know a lot of people vote that way. They're like, well, I don't want the other person to win, so I'm going to vote for this person who I don't really like so much or whatever. Mm-hmm. And you see that all the time. And so I guess the question is, back to the original, can Christians separate character from policy? And a secondary question to that, I guess, would be, does God use morally flawed leaders for divine purpose?
I mean, the answer to that is very simple. God absolutely can steer the heart of any leader whatever way he so chooses. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The argument against that is we only get the leaders we deserve when we vote for them. And maybe we deserve Donald Trump. And I say that with sadness, I think.
These are complex questions.
It is. This
is very multi-layered.
I would articulate to the world at large that Donald Trump has no reflection on Jesus Christ. That Donald Trump isn't a spokesman for Jesus Christ, that Donald Trump isn't, as much as the church voted for him, that whatever is Donald Trump isn't the church. Yeah.
Well, like we said at the beginning, I don't even know if Yeah, some people are convinced that he's a believer. Other people are convinced that he's Satan incarnate, and anywhere in between. So I don't think we can know his heart. But for every single person who is a believer, whether or not Trump is numbered among us, we ought to be doing our best every single day to represent Jesus well.
Yeah. That is.
So none of us are the perfect representation, but all of us ought to be
working toward that,
asking the Lord to bring us closer to that.
And that gets down to the rule of law and some of those things, and what ways are effective to bring about change if you are unhappy with the leadership of your country, and what avenues does the Christian have? I guess I would think of there was a Quaker guy that decided his neighbor was the people in need that were trying to cross the border. So he would go out and place drinking water where he thought they might need it, or supplies and whatever. And he was prosecuted multiple times, but in the best of stubborn ways, he just continued to do the mission that he thought God laid before him, which was to provide for the people that were near him. He lived near the border. And in my own life, I'm struggling with that question. What if I disagree strongly with this administration and the policies and things that they are doing? What just disagreeing isn't really enough. That back to that cowardly lion thing. You need to, and you need to decide how to affect the world around you. Mm-hmm. So what things can do to combat fear? I think at its core, I guess I'd go back and I'd just say this. I think people are good for America. All people. I am not that scared of immigration. It is good. More people or less people, I will choose more people. I would say that at the birth rate problem that America is going through, I don't know that abortion is really the problem we need to be talking about, because you know what's really happening is people are choosing not to have kids. Ever, never. They're also probably choosing not to have very much sex. Like,
some of the statistics for Gen Z in particular are kind of insane.
Wild. So I guess some of these problems even feel like my grandparents' problem that I need to fight about, like abortion. Like it, I don't even know it's my war. Like, I know what I would like, ideally, in a perfect world, but maybe I need to speak to the actual true pain of what is here now, which is hopelessness and the thought that things aren't going to get better, mm-hmm. and that America is in a downturn. And I guess I would articulate trying to sense and be where our culture is now, not the talking points of where it was. And the best thing to me is that some of these world leaders are going to get done here shortly. They're aging out. And I look forward to a future that we could move forward with some fresh ideas. I guess I would say, Donald Trump seems like a terrible, tired idea to me. And his mind is just a paradigm of Gen X boomer thought. I don't know, like us versus them and talking down to people. He shows no leadership that I want to perpetuate in the world, I guess. So that's what I guess I would move toward or talk toward is hope for a future. Hope for, you should find a girl you love and marry her and have a bunch of kids because people are what matter. I hope immigrants get to America and their life is going to be better than it was going to be where they were, because America is pretty freaking awesome.
Amen.
And
it's true.
The best thing you can ever do is get to America. Like, your life will be better. You will do better. Your kids will do better. There's nothing better in America than immigrant kids. Like the second generation, like the first ones that get here, do good. Those second generation kids just they smoke it. They do, like everywhere. We all know that. So I would articulate that future. I don't care if they're legal or illegal or, take the bad people away. Give us the good ones. I think we can do that legally in a safe, sound way that leads to goodness, I guess. I don't think saying Mexicans are rapists and murderers doesn't seem productive to me, or talking down to all those people groups. I think the world is full of potential, and more people make the world more better. And if that's even slums or like different, like slums are like the melting pot of poor is like the next place that the next thing comes from that leads, like just changes everything and changes. I guess that's my perspective on it. I know, like in the fear talking, like America isn't that weak. We can prosecute these people. We can put them in our prisons. They don't have to be other. The othering of people is another thing that I would grade Donald Trump very low on, of trying to make somebody less than. People are people. There's good ones and bad ones, and we have a justice system to sort that out. And I'm just not scared of more people. Somebody told me, Haitians are like, they live really rough in their country and they'll have a hard time assimilating. No, they're going to eat your dogs and cats. Come on. Yeah. There are stories of that. The Hmong people who moved to Minneapolis, they're from the tropics. They moved them to Minneapolis. Yeah, the woman did tear all the kitchen cabinets off and put wire and kept 40 chickens in a kitchen. Is that really bad? Like, people losing their mind about, like, that's okay. Her kids aren't doing that. Her kids are as American as apple pie and doing great. So like this, America assimilates people to American culture really, really quick, really, really well. Like, yeah. So I know that's different than the fear mongering of they're taking your jobs and they're taking your free benefits and they're all on the lam and they're getting free vouchers. I don't know. All the ones I know work 70 hours a week and are sending money to their mom. And I'm sure, like, I know that there are gangbangers or whoever that's bad. we have a justice system. We can lock those people up. I don't even mind if once you lock those people up that are doing bad things, that you send them to ICE and they deport them. That's a far cry from people are good, and more people lead to more prosperity, more innovation. Yeah, I don't know. Do you have counterpoints to that, Evan? Or
I agree with a surprising majority of what you just said, Ezra. I would just say when you said, America is awesome, I think we should highlight the truth and the gravity of that point. It's awesome for a reason. And I love the impulse, like, hey, we've got this great thing, everybody come and be a part of it. I'd like to go one step further and say, what's going on in your country that it's a bad place? And can we figure out how to fix that too? Because the blend of Christian values and rule of law, and again, all of these things have their, there's radicals in Christianity. There's places where the laws have been taken too far, or they're not, whatever. I mean, you can always find an exception to the rule, but in general, there's a handful of things you could list that have made America the place it is, that everybody wants to get here. How do we make sure that we don't dilute that? And how can we make sure that people actually do understand and appreciate what we've built? I think the assimilation point that you kind of went over pretty quickly is probably worth double clicking into a little bit. But B, what's going on everywhere else that conditions are so crappy? I've been talking a lot with Elijah Labula, for example, and just hearing about how things are back in the Congo, and how as soon as somebody's got a good thing going, the corrupt leaders see that and pretty much put an end to it. And because there's not safety and justice, and to the degree that there's maybe not Christian values, it makes advancement in a culture like that almost impossible, because as soon as you start to do well for yourself, you stick out like a sore thumb, and the corrupt machine around you lets, whoever that is come and take that from you. So I think it's really worth asking the question, why is what we've built working so well? Why does everybody want to get here? And can we help? How do we replicate that other places?
I don't know. Our government's been pretty poor at trying to replicate it anywhere.
Right, exactly. The things we've tried have not worked. So how do we?
Yeah. On the thought process side, I guess I would say I appreciate the sentiment that other places could be made better. I acknowledge the reality that Elijah is powerless, and I'm to change. I shouldn't say powerless. I'm glad Elijah's here. I guess I would say. I shouldn't pick on him. Sorry. I'm glad America is not full, I guess I would say, is what I'm getting at. America is not full. We have lots of room. And I don't have answers for remaking other places. And at 1.2 births per woman, we're going to have lots of openings.
Yeah, it's. I don't have all the answers on that question, but I just think it's a worthwhile question to ask.
To be fair, I would articulate Gloria Sheinbaum is not doing nothing in Mexico. Mexico has made leaps and bounds forward. And the people who want to leave Mexico, I would articulate this. The people that want to leave Mexico and come to the U.S., that see that as opportunity, that number is getting lower. And it is the most marginalized communities in those South American countries that find America attractive because of the stepping hierarchy of a society. They are the ones without opportunities or with lower opportunities. So that it's easier for them to, it's more attractive for them to come to America. Meaning they are the whatever, fill in whatever name is less than. And I don't know my Mexican culture enough to know what it is. I just know that they are not the Mexico City residents with upward mobility living a city life with things going on around them. They are poorest, ruralist, most remote places, and that's so I mean the same is true for many countries. The war-torn ones are harder, like what in the world's going on in the Congo or South Sudan. If I have a friend from South Sudan, I'm saying you could get to America, that would be great. Like South Sudan's been a mess for 20 years or more, and there's no solving it on the horizon, really. Other places are making, I think you could live in a lot of Asian countries. Here's a funny one. I think being a poor person who wants to live a homesteader life is easier in Russia than it is in the U.S. because they don't, property taxes are very different there. So there's a bunch of countries, depending what you're trying to do, that have more freedom or access to do certain things. But the economic engine that is America is special, I guess I would say. None of those other places I've mentioned resemble that prospect.
What comes to mind, and I don't know if it's the perfect analogy, is like what Marxism or socialism gets wrong is that it kind of starts at the assumption that, okay, we've got all this wealth. How do we, divvy it out in a fair and equitable way? And it neglects to ask the question, how do we promote more wealth generation and more value creation in the first place? And I think the mindset that, okay, everybody just come to America and you're safe here and it's a better life for you here is kind of like a moral or cultural Marxism means something different. So that's its own phrase. But like it fails to ask the question of, okay, how do we promote better cultures and safer places to begin with? Yes, we've got good values, good culture, safe place here. But instead of taking kind of the Marxist mindset of, okay, I've got a good thing now, how do we divvy it up fairly? Can we ask the question of how to make more of it?
I would argue, I guess this is a good scorecard thing. I would argue that Donald Trump is actually bad for that. That Donald Trump is the glorification of riches for riches' sake. And that the big, beautiful bill was a tax grab was a redistribution of wealth back to the wealthy. That the fact that a working family could pay a higher tax rate than an investor with billions of dollars doesn't bode well for the experiment that is America. The unchecked greed of the American experiment is I think heading toward just a systematic failure if we don't have morality used to be the guardrails to unchecked greed. And currently I don't see much guardrail there. And I would articulate a concern for just taking as much as you can. Currently, wealth is accumulating super fast at the top. And as a experiment, I think that's a bad, as a plan for a future stable country, I think continuing that trend is a bad idea. Do you think continuing the trend that we're on of concentrating the wealth in the top 1% to 2% is what you want America to continue to do?
The mechanics of it matter, though. And I feel like we're back to the discussion of, okay, it was $2 billion and now it's $6 billion, and that's a bad look. I agree. It's a bad look to say, okay, that the wealth is consolidating at the very highest echelon of people with net worth.
You don't
but
think
the
that's
mechanics
more than a
of
look,
it,
though? That it's actually like the policies that we put in place?
I'm saying it's an easy point to make, and maybe it's a little bit of a lazy point to make, to say, this is bad. Do you agree or don't you agree? Everybody agrees. Yes, we all agree. Why and how is that consolidation happening? Because either it's actual value creation, which is a good thing. Somebody writes an awesome book and they're able to, print every copy of it for $1, and enough people want to buy it, they can sell them each copy for $15. Great for them. I'm glad that they're a millionaire or a billionaire or whatever they are. If there's some arbitrage thing that's happening because of the complexity of our system and all the regulations, and you have to buy from this person, and so they can pretty much set whatever price they want, and that's bad, and let's figure out where and how that's happening and put an end to it. But I'm just saying the mechanics of it matter. It's bad. The A to B is bad, I agree, but why is it happening? How is it happening? And what's the fix?
So you're for socialized healthcare? No, I'm partially teasing. Healthcare is a perfect example of this.
Healthcare is a mess. Yeah, healthcare is real broken.
Yeah. I'm picking on healthcare because it's low-hanging fruit, but
Is there a practical solution, though, to socialized medicine that makes sense for...
I don't know. Everybody over 65 has it.
Well, that's okay, but for how many years? 10?
More?
13? What's the average life expectancy?
They print money.
They paid into it. They paid into it for 40 years.
Yeah.
It's that's actually a little bit more like investment fund. It's been misused. It's been completely destroyed.
Social Security is another egregious example there of wait a second, I contributed how much for 40 years?
Right.
And this is what I get monthly.
And the same would be true for Medicare. But you can't look to Canada. That's not working.
You don't want to wait 14 months for an x-ray? Come on, bro.
No. It's very hard to go and work when you have a broken leg.
So some of it is not either or. I would just say that everybody is covered in America.
Right.
You're going to get you won't get all of the health care you want, but you'll get most of the health care you need. Mm. Now, maybe not the best cancer care, but it could be argued whether the best cancer care leads to the gooder outcomes anyway. Gooder.
Yeah, the gooder ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah. But
That was the lowest hanging fruit you could have gone for.
It was
the health system.
Yeah. I mean,
of the systems
of capitalism as a shaky system, healthcare in America. But it's also because I would articulate this, to be fair to the argument. Healthcare is not a very capitalistic system in America because they're all running under monopolies or
corrupt
special protection or corruption. In that you can't try starting a competing hospital.
Right.
Try. Yeah. Good luck to you. Like,
right.
I wish you.
It's not easily privatized. No.
It's everybody in health. Sorry, any nurses or doctors, but everybody in healthcare is part of the grift. Now, I'm not saying that to excuse.
They're part of the machine.
They're part of the machine. Mm-hmm. I'm not excusing
either willingly or otherwise.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not aiming at a nurse making 80,000. Good for you. I'm happy or whatever. I am saying possibly that we could find some other system to do insurance that looks very different than it does. And between the insurance companies and the drug companies, Luigi has a fair amount of sympathy in my life.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, the guy who killed the United Health CEO.
Yeah.
I don't think the ends justify the means in that scenario either.
I'm not recommending it, but to say that it didn't happen I would say this. I'm not saying the ends justify the means, or that's what I want to happen. I would say if I was on a jury, I would jury nullify in that case.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
you can't say that, can you?
No, you've been talking about optics the whole time, and I don't know how letting off a cold-blooded killer is good optics, especially from a Christian.
Yeah.
And in the same breath, go after a Christian who voted for Trump for who knows what reasons, as they're placating this terrible person and greenlighting everything he does.
That's interesting. I do appreciate the consistency between those two. I would say in the American experiment, the only way that has ever, the examples of true systematic change in America, well, we like to pretend everything is nonviolent, have always had a violent wing to them that went along with the change. And that the Susan B. Anthony had a lot of violence done to her to get the vote for women. A lot, they were accepting violence done to them. They pushed the edges of what made people comfortable. I know that we like to think that just voting changes things, but it has always been voting when enough momentum happens. And that momentum almost always has a John Brown attached to it, or a Black Panther Society attached to it, or so when a system quits working well, violence is one of the things that comes along with that. And in America, the violence seems to always happen before we actually vote to change, to make the change.
So is it a symptom of the brokenness, or is it part of the solution?
Man.
Because otherwise you're making a pretty interesting case for January 6th.
Yeah. Situation by a situation. I don't know. I just know, like, when there's different forms of it, and like that's where it gets real dicey. So I know that during the civil rights movement at the local church level, they were talking to their young men how to protest and how to accept a beating well from the police.
Where was this?
Civil rights protests.
Okay, yeah, right.
In
Civil
the
disobedience.
South. Civil disobedience. Mm-hmm. How to effectively throw themselves on the gears of government and accept a beating, an actual beating, like
for optics sake, for the movement, for
I don't see. That's the interesting thing about. We talk like about Gandhi. Making change in another country. Gandhi would be a perfect example.
Right.
I mean, line up and march on that salt mine till the British soldiers wore themselves out, beating the people in front of them. You beat that row, another row, another row. Oh, just wow.
That's very different from like the healthcare CEO situation. Not in the sense of optics, maybe. But
the peaceful part of you, I guess I would have agreed with that in my younger years. That this nonviolent principle was the highest end, and that only protests that were nonviolent should be heard. I don't think that reflects reality very well. I think the Black Panthers were violent.
Oh yeah,
and I saying they had no part in that conversation of that time just doesn't seem truthful. Now, John Brown to a principle of. Now, there are other versions of that. The Quakers were very nonviolent, non-voting, still very active in the Underground Railroad, still very direct action, taking personal risk, willing to accept the consequences. Whatever the government had to deal out, they were willing to accept that and keep going with their principles. I think Luigi's example is in a vacuum, meaning he personally was desperate to affect change. So I don't think the Kansas City or the Oklahoma City bomber and Luigi are. One killed innocents. The other took the law into his own hands. But, yeah. Those are both strong examples. I think John Brown's a pretty strong example, too, of kind of wild thoughts anyway.
Yeah.
For me, leaving our conversation tonight, I want to go back to, given that the ends don't justify the means for Christians, what do I want to do in my own life? And I think the point, Ezra, you're making is well taken, that ultimately actions speak a lot louder than words. And the Quakers were willing to put their own life and property on the line for what they believed in. And we certainly as Christians need to find ways that we not only in our speech stand up for the truth, but ask the Lord, okay, what action are you calling me to, especially locally? Because it's easy in our world that's, we hear about every single problem that happens everywhere on the planet at this point on social media and in the news. Yeah. It can get overwhelming. And I think that we need to be looking, 20-mile radius, 50-mile radius, whatever that is, and say, Lord, what is it, where you've put me on this earth that I'm supposed to be doing, and how can I take the truth of the scripture and my identity as a son or a daughter of Jesus and put that into action. And that's going to look different for every single person. Like Ez was saying earlier, some are going to feel maybe real called to the abortion stuff, and some are going to, I don't think that's what that's not my war to fight, and my war is something very different, and that's okay. I don't think Christians all have to have the same war to fight. I think that the Lord calls each of us to different facets in different areas.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest takeaways for me is I totally agree with that. Actually, it is definitely naive to not look throughout the Bible and say, look at these men called to action. Look at God poking them and telling them to lead with courage, to do the right thing. And what that looks like is hard to extrapolate over every situation and every circumstance.
It's going to be different for all of us.
And it's not as easy as one size fits all. Mm-hmm. So, that instance that you were just talking about, and Gandhi and some of these other things, like from the Christian worldview, it's exactly what you just said. It's what is the Lord telling you, and what are hills He wants you to die on,
right? And
that could be different for every individual. We do seem to get like hyper focused on the journey, generally speaking, and pointing out in other people's lives where we think they should be. But from believers to believers, I think the relationship is a little bit different, biblically speaking, on how we interact with each other and what it looks like to be iron sharpening iron versus the destruction of a fire. So I'll give each of you guys just some closing thoughts. I mean, this has been really fun.
Yeah.
And I already know that this is going to be super fun to listen to back. And I'll leave my outro for the end.
We didn't quite get to the 5-hour limit, but
not quite.
Man, we did all right.
We're doing pretty good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Ezra, just kind of closing thoughts on the overall conversation.
I found it productive. I will say this has been a journey to deal with Donald, to deal with how to talk to people and how to associate with people that, what's the word? I've been having a hard time putting, like, why don't you see the world like I see it?
Mm-hmm.
And
join the club.
And through that, I guess I would say feeling disenfranchised, I think the word is, with people of faith. I guess I would narrow that down. Feeling disenfranchised with the evangelical movement of America and the acceptance of Trump as a good has been a journey. And I would say in that I have struggled with what it like how to respond to people, how to show love. There's part of me really that wants to other people in that their motives aren't good, or they're, that something's going on. I guess I would reaffirm in my own life, as I've walked through this, the importance of people and relationship. And there were times that I really didn't want to go to church, that I really didn't, that I wanted to pull back. And for whatever it's worth, I would say that pulling back doesn't really, it's the answer that protects you, but it's not really the answer that is
fulfilling.
Well,
makes you feel good.
No, I mean, it might make you feel good in the moment, but holding on to hurt isn't
right.
the way forward.
That's right.
And I say all this to just say, like, I haven't changed my positions. I have chosen who I talk to, some more and less. I would still articulate a love for my fellow believers, even if, yeah. And I don't know. Yeah, I would say that's good to keep connected, I guess what I would say. That unless somebody wants to break relationship with you, that is so far as you're able, it's not like breaking relationship is a way bigger deal than people make it out to be, I guess I would say.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that I have to discuss everything or give people access to everything.
Right.
But it also doesn't mean that I need to pull away from people. So thanks for walking through with me, Evan. I guess that's what I'm saying. Again, I would reaffirm that both of us are trying to draw closer to Jesus and trying to affect the people around us with good.
Yeah. Just a highlight on that. I appreciate your outlook very much. I think that everybody can relate to that to some level. Mm-hmm. And it's very hard for everybody on that entire spectrum of evangelicals, Christians, faith, whatever, to see somebody else doing something that they may feel convicted about or whatever, and you thinking like that's not okay. You can't be that way. What's the matter with you? So I appreciate the honesty. Yeah. I appreciate the humility too. Like, and we're all on this exact same journey. Like, even we're talking about politics tonight, but there's some church hurt and whatever else. Like, those are all similar experiences to choose connection over disconnection. Yeah, because I might be hurt about politics, but there's way more personal, closer to home things to be hurt about too. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And that goes to the point that we started out with about, kind of knowing the relationship, knowing the medium that you're talking in, and being smart. And I would say being emotionally intelligent to know if you have that, that ability to have a productive and relational experience with somebody, and what's it worth to you, So
I love where Ez landed there. Yeah, even before you kind of got to where you were going, I was thinking, okay, what do I want to say at the end? And I wrote down stay in relationship, which is right where you landed as well. So I think that is the theme and the take home from this discussion for sure is it is so important for us as Christians to be in community, to love each other sacrificially, to continue gathering and meeting together. I think it's maybe Hebrews 12 or 13 that talks about how some have kind of abandoned the practice, and he instructs them to continue the fellowship and the gathering together. And that's in our world of isolation and loneliness and hopelessness, to Ezra's point earlier, and social media, and like the lines are getting blurred between what's even real and fake anymore. I think that as believers, it's really important for us to stay in connection and in relationship to one another. And that's messy sometimes, that hurts sometimes, but it's worth it. And that's the kind of loving community that's going to be an effective witness to a world that needs that same loving community also.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you both for coming. I actually have some giveaways for you guys.
Where is
from
this
our,
from, pray tell?
Azahar Roast House.
Let's go.
Who has brought these to you guys as a thank you.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you guys. Check that out.
What'd you get? Classic roast.
I really appreciate you guys coming on and talking. I think that these conversations are super important, and I think people take good takeaways from this too.
Yeah.
So, thanks, Ez. Appreciate
Thanks.
it. Yep. Ez, appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, folks, that's it for us. We'll catch you on the next one. See ya.